Hello from Blue Willow Bookshop in Houston, Texas. My name is Kathy Berner, and I am the event coordinator at the shop. We are honored to host this virtual event celebrating the absolutely gorgeous Elbert in the Air, a collaboration between author Monica Wesolowska and illustrator Jerome Pumphrey. Please join me in welcoming these amazing creators to the screen. How are y'all? I'm so glad to see you.
Hi, doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got 3 time zones represented here. This is pretty cool. Just on screen.
That's right.
So let's get to it. Monica, let's start with you. What was the germ of the idea that led to you writing Elbert in the Air?
Pretty simple. I thought, what would you do if your child floated into the air? I mean, I'm just really stunned by the ways that children challenge their parents to parent in ways that they need. We don't know who we're going to end up with, when we have a child. And so I just wanted to kind of create a really open metaphor for the journey of parenthood, where this boy, who eventually came to be called Elbert, did the really unexpected thing of being different than what anyone around him expected. And so the metaphor is floating, but it's been really amazing to see how people read that metaphor in their own personal ways.
I agree. And without further ado, would you mind sharing it with us?
I would love to. Thank you. Elbert in the Air by me, illustrated by Jerome Pumphrey. So amazingly done. And here we go, the title page, which is kind of like this shadow puppet preview. Shortly after he was born, Elbert floated into the air. Soon, his mother had to stretch to reach him. When people heard she stood on tiptoes to feed him, they came from all around to give advice. Net him like a butterfly, suggested one neighbor. Reel him in like a kite, urged another. Deflate him, insisted a stranger, like a balloon. But Elbert was not a butterfly, nor a kite, nor a balloon. Elbert was Elbert. And when he cooed in the air, his mother merely said, if Elbert was born to float, I will let him. As Elbert grew, he floated higher. Soon his mother had to climb the furniture to reach him. All day long, she tossed him toys, which Elbert used to build a floating world above her head. Look, Ma, he exclaimed. Fantastic, Elbert, she replied. And for a while, it was. But Elbert grew and grew. When he outgrew his toy world, he somersaulted out the window to spend his days playing by himself above the yard. But one day, he just hovered. Even on my birthday, he sighed. No one else is up here. Don't worry, his mother said, climbing a ladder with his cake. I'm here. Now make a wish. So Elbert did. And while he waited for his wish to come true, he shared his cake with some squirrels. The next day, Elbert spotted a group of children starting school. Look, Ma, he called, I'm ready to join them. But when Elbert entered through the classroom window, his teacher called for help. Assign him bigger books, recommended the librarian. Issue him heavier shoes, prescribed the nurse. Glue him, dictated the secretary, to his chair. No matter what he tried, Elbert didn't fit in. His tears fell like rain. But when they tried to send him home, Elbert's mother sternly shook her head and said, if Elbert was born to float, you should let him. Elbert soon learned to fold his schoolwork into fancy paper airplanes to land on his teacher's desk. At recess, he caught the highest balls and tagged his classmates with his shadow. Fantastic, Elbert, his mother said. And for a while, it was. But Elbert grew and grew. And as he grew, his distance from his classmates widened until he couldn't join their games no matter how he tried. And I just want to point out these two little kids there at the tops of the trees. They are throughout the book. To keep him company one night, his mother climbed a fire escape. Just be yourself, she soothed him, and you'll find friends. Then she handed him a big bowl of popcorn, big enough to share. Look, Ma, he cheered, spotting a shooting star. Fantastic, Elbert, she replied. Make a wish. So Elbert did. The next day, Elbert carried his wish all over town until a crowd complained he was causing a commotion. Anchor him like a boat, preached a bus driver. Hook him like a fish, growled a dog walker. Forbid all floating, demanded the mayor, and arrest him. Fortunately, Elbert was Elbert. No hook, no anchor, no law could bring him down. So when his mother scrambled up a crane to defend him, he bravely reassured her, Don't worry, Ma. I'll just float higher. But as he rose and everyone shrank, Elbert's heart grew heavy. Just then, something nudged him. Dearest Elbert, be yourself, but take this picnic with you. Thanks, Ma, Elbert cried, blowing down a kiss. And with that, he floated higher and higher, high enough to find the world he'd always wished for. Dearest Ma, climb this rope. And it was fantastic.
I am gritting my teeth to not burst into tears. And like that's the fourth reading I've experienced. It's such a beautiful story, Monica.
Thank you.
As we said off screen, it reminds me of the kind of parent I hope I have been most of the time. You know, you're not a perfect parent, but you hope you've provided your children with that level of support. It's so beautiful. Jerome, when you first saw this manuscript, what was your reaction? And did the style that you used, and by style, I mean, it to me, it seems very like classic 50s. Did that immediately pop into your head, or did you refine to get to that?
That's a great question. So the first part, when I first read it, I was curious as to why, I would be a fit for it, or, why the editor thought that I should be someone to collaborate with on it. And that was what I was thinking. And I realized immediately it does sort of, well, you see this life of Elbert from when he's a baby all the way while he grows up. And we've done that in our previous, I've done that with my brother in our previous books, The Old Truck and The Old Boat. And so I honestly started there. I wanted to use a similar aesthetic that I used in that book. I did know that we were following the life of Elbert from when he was born to this really cool scene at the end. And I tried to make it look like a very buttoned up type of culture, the well-dressed people. And then as it progresses, you see this like out of this world experience at the end. So those were some of the things that I was thinking as I approached it.
Well, you did a fabulous job.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to you now so you can do a quick drawing demonstration.
Okay, wonderful. So what I should share about this is the medium. So what I did is I did these illustrations digitally, which is a little bit different for me. I have previously done a little mixture of some printmaking and some digital enhancement on the printmaking, but this was fully digital. And I did that because the scenes depict a lot of action. So there's that quality that I wanted to capture just from regular drawing. And so that was what I decided to do. So I'll go ahead and show you a demonstration of drawing Elbert here. And I'm going to do this just using my, this is Photoshop is the software that I'm using. And I'm using a tablet to draw with, okay? So I thought I would draw baby Elbert. And the way I do this is just the same way that I would approach traditional artwork. So I start off with a sketch, and that's just rough shapes. And baby Elbert kind of has a kidney bean shape here for his body. And then I do the legs. And one thing that I learned in art school that I still use is the sketches don't have to be perfect. They can be fast. Because you can learn the same thing from a 5-second sketch that you can from a 5-minute sketch, which is whether or not it's going to work. And that gives us a start there. So that's the shape that I'll use. And if I was drawing on paper, I would have done that in pencil, but I did it digitally, so I can just turn down the opacity on that and not see it as much. And now I'm going to go ahead and color this in. And one thing that's similar with the art style in this book and my other books is I still did use pretty simple shapes and strong silhouettes. I don't know why I do that other than I appreciate that graphic look. Okay. And we're going to see how this comes out, because this is just the second time that I've done a digital drawing in front of people. So but Elbert has a nice round head. And these little hands. So when I was doing this book, I started about, I think it was 2 years ago is when I started with the dummy book and so forth. And I will say my son was about 2.5 or 3 at the time. And he was definitely a little bit of the inspiration and the model for some of these baby poses. Okay, and then we'll do hair. And pretty simple face features. Okay. And honestly, this looks kind of like him. If I was going to put this in a book, I'd probably work on it a little bit more to make sure I get the likeness. But that's what's fun about making art. It's not always the same. And I'll just add a little bit of detail here. And there we go.
I love it.
All right, thank you.
I would say it's a pretty good likeness.
All right.
So I don't know if very observant people can see over my left shoulder, but I've got a Wilma Rudolph print from Jerome, and I just love it. So thank you for that. Many people in the comments and in the Q&A are letting you all know that they cried too. So well done. Book to make you cry, this one.
I hope it makes people laugh too.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. I think we would agree that too. So before I go to the Q&A, I have a question for both of you. When Jerome, when you saw Monica's manuscript, and then Monica, when you saw Jerome's artwork, was there something that surprised you about it?
Well, for me, so I initially had no idea what it should look like, but I knew that Elbert had to float. And so, but I didn't know what that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first looked at all the different illustrators that my editor suggested, I thought, well, none of them are floating, like, how's that going to look? But with time, I realized actually that Jerome, I thought, was the perfect person for this book because of the kind of amount of space he leaves for emotion, his ability to work with repetition, because it's a really patterned book. But what I didn't expect, and which totally delighted me, was the way that he would literally take my language and create patterns with the illustrations. So in the book, we have a series of 3 where the different adults give suggestions that become progressively worse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never in a million years would I have imagined those boxes like that. And so that was just so exciting because it really felt like my language was being animated in a way that I would not have expected or asked for. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll take off from there. When I got the manuscript, I was given it to just to read and see if I'd be interested in contributing, being the illustrator for it. And what struck me, I don't know if I was surprised. I'd never, heard of this before. I was like, oh, a flying boy. And I was just super interested. But what struck me about the work that really made me interested was I really appreciate books that, someone has said this before, but I'm saying it now, but books that have many answers to the question of what is it about? And this does that. It has the nuance where different people can read it and say, wow, this is totally about living with disability. This is totally about self-love. This is about unconditional love. And in fact, I've heard all of those. And even before I think I was on the project, it came from the editor with the description of it and from my agent with the description of it. So I just love that because it's a sign of how universal something can be. And so I was super interested in that. I found the patterns that you were bringing up, Monica, like jumped out at me right away. I immediately saw the pattern and structure in the story and wanted to enhance that, or as much as I could visually. So I took that as a task.
You did such a great job. So Monica, you did mention that the 2 friends in the trees appear throughout the book. Did you offer that as a note, or Jerome, did you create that?
Actually, well, maybe we have different answers. As I recall, I think that was my only art note, was that there should be some suggestion. I mean, it was very vague, but some suggestion that some people might be in support of him and that they would find some way to visit him at the end. And I think I offered all sorts of silly things, which maybe Jerome never even got. But, I think I suggested hot air balloon, trampoline, cannon, human cannon. It was really, I wanted to be open to anything. But yeah, that's the way I remember it, because I mean, the book is really about a mother supporting her son, and everyone else in the town is pretty mean. And I talked a lot to my editor about that. Do I want just an unsupportive world? And I realized, no, I don't want to suggest that children are unsupportive, because I think children when they're young, usually are pretty supportive. I mean, yes, of course, we have problems with bullying, and yes, but I wanted to make sure that there were some kids in there who thought, oh, okay, Elbert floats. Let me see how I can connect with him. And so I wanted them to have a way to get up there and visit at the end.
Yeah, that's right. And that tracks with what I was going to say. I was going to say that I did get the notes and I really appreciated them because I could use them or not use them. And I don't think I used every note, but that one was very key for the reasons that Monica just said. And I feel like it gives it, if the story didn't have that part happening visually, we would lose that whole other layer of nuance. And it would be kind of just everyone's bad, Albert's mom's good.
And empathy.
Right.
And modeling empathy and acceptance.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not just one adult mom who is modeling empathy, but these two kids who become his friends do too.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So one of our dear library friends, Melanie Scales, says she's in tears. The story and the art are perfect. And then she goes on to ask Jerome, can you talk about the color palette? What drew you to these colors? And was this the first, was the palette developed along the way, or was this kind of instantly what you went into?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so great question. Hi. We've met in person, Melanie, right?
You have, yeah, Melanie, Heads Up Bookworm.
Okay, that's right. So when I first got it, it did take some. My process is I do concept artwork that may not even be the spread that it's going to go in the book, but just to see if I'm striking the right tone. And I was drawn to these colors because I wanted it to feel cheerful and happy and bright. And these are kind of strong primary colors and a few secondary colors in there. But it's definitely a cheerful palette. And I felt like that balances this text very well. Someone could have another take with some very earthy tones, and you might start crying at the beginning of the book. Because it could come across pretty sad. So I felt like that was a good balance, or at least that was the hope. And yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that my editor and I talked about. I said, the potential is here for people to cry. And so I want to counterbalance it, because I don't know, this might be a book that kids just read with delight and laugh and enjoy, and then they turn to their parent and say, why are you crying? As my kids always did whenever we watched Charlotte's Web.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
exactly. There was in our family, I cried pretty frequently at books. And at some point, the kids would be like, Dad, Mom's crying. He's like, it's okay. She's either happy or sad. It's great that a book is doing that for her. Just let her be. But yeah, it was really just, it's beautiful. And that the palette really helps lighten the tone from the get-go.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. So for both of you, since we know that books are in the pipeline for such a long time, do you have anything else in the pipeline that you can share with us? Monica?
I sure wished I had something I could share with you, but it's very much in the pipeline, in that swirl of creativity and market. And yeah, so I think you're going to be waiting a little while. You'll have to just reread this one.
I'm happy to do that. And your other one.
And my first one, Leo plus Leah.
Yeah, I am happy to reread your books over and over again as I wait. How about you, Jerome?
So yeah, we've one that we're going to do a little event with Blue Willow is the Lincoln Hud book that is hot off the press. So this comes out on 7 March. It's a graphic novel chapter book hybrid it's a middle grade, and super excited about that one. It's half the chapters appear as graphic novel comic panels, and then there's these prose chapters that are basically an illustrated chapter book, and it tells the story of these really imaginative boys. It's very semi-autobiographical for Jared and I. We're definitely pulling from our life. And so that one, excited about. And then other news that it was just announced on Saturday from Publishers Weekly, so I can share it, is Jared and I are illustrating a book that was written by Jason Reynolds called A Party for Langston, which is about Langston Hughes and actually other famous poets, famous Black poets. And that has been something we've been working on for about 2.5 years and comes out in October. So we're very excited about that.
I cannot wait. It's going to be exciting. And I will wait for bated breath for news from you, Monica.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind as I sit at my desk.
I know. I know. There's so many other things that go into everything. But we're grateful for what you have provided us with so far, and we're looking forward to more. I'm trying to think. I have one final question, but before I hit that, I want to see if anybody else in the audience has a question that I will get to. And if so, they can certainly type it in. But in the meantime, I'm kind of vamping. That's okay. So I'm going to go to my final one. At Blue Willow, we talk about books being from the heart and being a part of us. And there are so many that make up each person. But if you could name one book that you would say you hold in your heart or that was foundational to you, we would love to know it. It can be something from when you were a kid. It can be something you read with your kids. It can be something you read while you were in college. It can be something you read last week. We're pretty open about that. So Monica, you got one?
Ooh, wow. Well, okay. So there's so many amazing contemporary books. So I'm, just blanking, and I'm going to go with that childhood book, which was Ferdinand. I read that book over and over because Ferdinand, this seems to be one of my themes, and I didn't realize this as a kid, but it's becoming apparent now. Just was himself. And his mother, I think the line is something like, his mother, who was only a cow, was an understanding mother. Something like that. And I just so profound that through his sticking to his desire to sit and smell the flowers, he avoids having to participate in the violence of a bullfight. And he is rewarded for that in the sense that he's returned to his field to smell the flowers. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could all say we want to smell flowers instead of fighting each other.
It'd be lovely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
How about you, Jerome?
So yeah, I love the question. What I think, for me, I'll take a childhood book, which was Miss Nelson is Missing. And the reason it's so meaningful for me is it's one of the first books I remember selecting by myself and buying. I think it was in the first grade at the Scholastic Book Fair, and I still have my copy of it with my little first grade handwriting in there. And I've rediscovered it with my kids they love it. And then, it's a trilogy. So we've read all of them. And yeah, that one would be the heart for me.
I love both of your choices. Those make me so happy. And your book makes me so happy. I'm so grateful to you for both sharing your talents in this beautiful collaboration that reminds us that we should accept people where they are and as they are. Whether we're a parent, whether we're a friend, whether we're an educator, that's what we need to do. And the more we can do that, the better off all of us are going to be. So thank you both. Thank you so much for being here. Jerome, I'll see you on Monday in person. It's going to be awesome. Monica, I hope you will come to Houston sometime and we can welcome you to the store, because that would be a lovely day.
I would love to come by and visit. Thank you.
Wonderful. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you either virtually or in person sometime soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.